The first alarm sounds while fuel is already moving. A pressure spike flashes on the intake board. Brief, sharp, then gone. An operator reaches for the reset, but the system doesn't wait. A second alert hits, then a third, stacked faster than the console can clear them. Hold that transfer, someone says. Too late. Flow drops hard. One line goes dead. A backup valve tries to open and locks halfway through its cycle. The board flickers, then repopulates with new warnings. Shut it down, the supervisor orders. Now. The command is entered. The response light doesn't change. Outside, a tanker is still connected. Fuel is still inside the system. Another alarm triggers, this one tied to pressure imbalance deeper in the network. A safeguard countdown appears in the corner of the screen. 0045. What's causing the spike? No visual breach. Then why isn't it isolating? The countdown continues. 0032. Dock control calls in. An inbound vessel is minutes from its slot and asking for clearance. No one answers. All eyes stay on the board. A second segment drops offline. That was not part of the failure plan. Manual isolation segment 3, the supervisor says. Key strike. A confirmation box appears. He doesn't wait for consensus. Execute. The system hesitates. Then the screen flashes red. Fuel movement across the port halts instantly. Pumps shut down mid-cycle. Valves freeze where they are. Every connected operation is forced to stop at once. Outside, the tanker's crew feels the vibration cut. The ship goes quiet. Inside, the countdown disappears, replaced by a single status line stretched across the board. Port transfer lock. Active. No one speaks. That lock cannot be lifted without a full integrity check. It will take hours if nothing else fails. Longer if something already has. A new alert appears, this one not tied to pressure or flow. External sensor trip. Low profile. Near the waterline. The supervisor looks up. All movements stay frozen, he says. Nothing restarts. Because whatever just forced the system to shut itself down hasn't finished yet. The lock holds. Minutes pass with no change on the board. Systems that should be independent remain frozen, waiting for clearance that never comes. Operators begin checking downstream effects, pulling up auxiliary displays that are rarely needed during normal operations. The first call comes from the patrol craft. They are still burning fuel, still moving, but their planned refuel window is now gone. The controller acknowledges the call and gives no estimate. Another channel lights up. Dock services asking why transfer cranes are idle with ships already queued. No one has an answer that fits the situation. A technician flags a secondary anomaly. A sensor along the outer intake perimeter has stopped reporting entirely. Not degraded, not intermittent, just gone. A backup feed is brought online. It shows nothing unusual. Water moves the way it always does. That makes it worse. Port security initiates a sweep. Cameras cycle again, this time slower. Angles are widened. The waterline is checked frame by frame. Nothing breaks the surface. Inside, fuel temperature readings begin to drift. Not dangerously, but unevenly. That shouldn't happen in a static system. Another alert appears. Auxiliary power draw has increased in one sector, despite all major pumps being offline. The load shouldn't be there. Is anything still active? Negative. Everything's locked. The board disagrees. Command staff arrive, pulling on headsets as they walk. The situation is summarized in fragments. Lock engaged, unknown trigger, external sensor loss, no visual confirmation. They ask how long the port can stay frozen without causing secondary issues. No one answers that either. Traffic control reports vessels backing up offshore. One captain requests permission to reposition due to weather. Permission is granted, but only to move farther away. No ship is allowed closer to the port. Another system drops into safe mode on its own. This one isn't tied to fuel. That draws a line under it. The problem is no longer contained to a single function. It is crossing boundaries that are supposed to be isolated by design. Engineers begin pulling manuals that haven't been opened in years, looking for edge case procedures that assume failures don't overlap like this. A final update scrolls across the main display. Quiet, unaccompanied by alarms. Integrity status, unconfirmed. The room goes still, because until that status clears, nothing can restart. Not fuel, not logistics, not movement. And somewhere, just beyond the perimeter, whatever forced the system into this state has already proven it doesn't need permission to act again. The first confirmation doesn't come from a weapon system. It comes from a technician who notices that one camera feed along the outer intake is looping. The time code stutters, repeats 3 seconds, then resumes as if nothing happened. "Freeze that," he says. They rewind manually. The frame holds. At the edge of the image, low, nearly lost in glare, something cuts across the waterline. It's there for less than a second. No wake, no profile tall enough to trip automatic detection. They roll the feed back again. There, a second camera catches it from another angle. Still no clear shape, just displacement. Water pushed aside by something moving with purpose, not drift. Security switches the display to a wide composite. The feeds don't line up cleanly. Whatever it is has already passed the overlap zone. "Track it," the supervisor orders. They can't. The object never breaks the surface. There's no return to follow, no sound signature clean enough to isolate. But by the time a bearing is estimated, it's already irrelevant. Then another alert hits. This one is physical. A vibration sensor mounted near the intake housing spikes once. Sharp, contained, immediately followed by total signal loss. The board doesn't flash red. It simply removes the sensor from the network. A beat later, pressure collapses in the affected line. That answers the last open question. Damage control procedures initiate automatically. Foam floods compartments below the waterline. Internal fire suppression engages despite no flame detection. The system reacts to rupture, not heat. Outside, a muted thud rolls through the concrete pylons. It's felt more than heard. Dock crews pause, looking toward the water. No secondary blast follows. Inside the control room, a structural diagram updates. A single junction node blinks, then goes dark. "All status stays locked," command says. Nothing moves. They issue the order before anyone can suggest otherwise, because now the sequence is clear. Whatever moved through the perimeter did not miss. It did not drift. It did not probe. It struck exactly where it needed to. And if there was one, no one finishes the thought, because the water outside the port looks the same as it did an hour ago. And the systems inside are no longer arguing about what happened. They are recording it. The damage itself is contained. Engineers confirm that within the intake structure, one junction has failed completely. The rupture is localized. The surrounding framework remains intact. On paper, it is a repair measured in days, not weeks. Operationally, that distinction means very little. The port remains locked. Until the integrity sweep clears every connected line, no fuel moves. Not from the water, not inland, not between internal storage tanks. Ships wait offshore, burning fuel they cannot replace. Patrol rotations are adjusted quietly, favoring endurance over presence. A scheduled departure is delayed, then removed entirely. Nothing is announced. Internally, planners begin rerouting supply flows through alternate nodes. Those nodes were never designed to carry this load. Throughput drops immediately. Timetables stretch, maintenance windows shrink. Every adjustment creates friction. Crews stay aboard longer than planned. Consumables meant to arrive tomorrow are pushed back by 48 hours. Vehicles scheduled to move inland remain parked, engines cold, paperwork accumulating. Structural expansion. Block, cascading logistics. Friction. As the hours pass, the consequences spread beyond the port itself. Fuel distribution models are recalculated with new assumptions. Buffer margins that once existed as insurance are now treated as mandatory reserves. This reduces available supply without a single additional strike. Transport planners revise routes to avoid dependence on a single node. Longer paths increase transit times. Escort requirements rise as movements stretch into less protected corridors. Assets spend more time in transit and less time on task. Repair crews work under constraint. Replacement components must be brought in through alternate access points, each requiring inspection and clearance. Security protocols slow every step. No one assumes this was a one-off. Insurance representatives file provisional assessments. Risk categories are quietly updated. Commercial operators begin asking whether future calls at this port are advisable. No one gives a definitive answer. Commanders are forced to plan around uncertainty rather than capacity. Fuel allocations are treated as ceilings, not targets. Exercises are trimmed. Non-essential movements are deferred indefinitely. The strike has not removed capability outright. It has made every future decision more cautious, more conservative, and slower. That effect compounds daily. By the time the damaged junction is replaced, the system around it no longer resembles the one that existed before the lock engaged. New procedures are in place. New assumptions govern movement. The port will reopen, but it will not return to normal. By the time repairs near completion, the operational picture has already shifted. The question is no longer when fuel will flow again. It is whether anyone can be certain it won't stop just as abruptly next time. This strike does not redefine naval power. It redefines where pressure is applied. For decades, maritime doctrine has centered on platforms, ships, aircraft, submarines, because those are the assets that decide battles. They are visible, measurable, and expensive. They demand symmetrical responses. Logistics does not. Fuel systems, transfer nodes, intake structures, and routing hubs exist to be reliable, not resilient. They are built for efficiency, not attrition. Their protection has always been assumed rather than enforced. Unmanned surface drones exploit that assumption. They do not need to defeat defenses. They only need to reach the point where defenses are thin by design. They do not need to destroy infrastructure. They only need to force it to stop trusting itself. Once that trust is gone, the burden shifts entirely to the defender. Every port becomes a potential point of failure. Every repair must be treated as provisional. Every movement must assume interruption. To compensate, planners add margin, extra fuel, longer routes, reduced tempo. Those margins accumulate. The attacker does not need to strike again immediately. The first disruption continues to shape behavior long after the damage is repaired. Readiness degrades quietly, not because assets are lost, but because confidence is. This is why the method scales. It is cheap to repeat and expensive to defend against. It blurs attribution without obscuring effect. It operates below thresholds that trigger decisive retaliation while still forcing strategic recalculation. Defenders will adapt. Port security will harden. Detection will improve. Procedures will change. But adaptation takes time, and time is exactly what this method steals. As long as a single low-profile system can force a major logistics node to freeze itself, control of the sea is no longer decided only by who sails it, but by who can quietly decide when others cannot.